What's good, y'all? It's the one and only King Cal 516 live in the mix. This is the Switch Flames podcast. So, will the Utah Jazz win the NBA championship this year? Are the Jazz championship contenders or pretenders? We are going to dive into this. And before we do, please check out the website, www.switchflames.com. Hit us up on Twitter @SwitchFlames, and definitely check out the Facebook and YouTube page @SwitchFlames Podcast. We are almost at 1,000 subscribers on YouTube, so we definitely appreciate your support. Please hit the like. Please hit the subscribe, and definitely comment on this subject at hand. So, are the Utah Jazz seriously title contenders, or are they pretenders? Let's get into this, y'all. So, last year, Utah Jazz ended up finishing in the regular season with the number one record in all of basketball. The Utah Jazz had the number one record in all of basketball. But their playoff run, if we're going to be honest, to me, was a little underwhelming. All right, they made it to the conference semifinals and then got eliminated by the Clippers, a series where Kawhi Leonard goes down on injury. But the Clippers were still able to pull it out through the great play of Paul George. Paul George did his thing last playoffs. Reggie Jackson came up big, Terrence Mann, and a lot of these guys, Clippers' depth was just a little too much for the Jazz to handle. And so my question is, coming into this season, are the Utah Jazz really contenders? Now, in their defense, one of their best players, Michael Conley, was hurt. He ended up coming towards the end of that series, coming back to play, but obviously he wasn't his full self. So I'm going to express my opinion based upon them being fully healthy. Now we know they got an absolute stud, rising superstar in Donovan Mitchell. So that's their best player. And so you have a really great player on the wing who can dominate, who can score, who can play make. He wasn't 100% either. You know what I mean? So they had some hiccups. I do get that. But if you watch that Clippers series, you have Rudy Gobert at center, who's your max player center, who's an all-defensive center, who's a defensive player of the year, a perennial contender for defensive player of the year. The Clippers were moving the ball so well. The Clippers were such a great three-point shooting team last year that the Clippers basically found ways to try to play Rudy Gobert off the court. And because they were hitting that three-point at a high clip, Rudy Gobert had to play the three-point line. If you guys recall and remember that. And so they were even able to get Rudy Gobert out there. And so I believe the whole Jazz identity is taken if Rudy Gobert can't be Rudy Gobert. And so, just some thoughts about their playoff series. It was definitely underwhelming. They're definitely, as far as their own expectations, should have had high expectations. But my expectations of the Jazz was at least conference finals. I believe their aspirations were bigger. But if I'm looking up and down the roster, you look at some of these additions they got. They were able to add Rudy Gay this offseason, which I think, to me, that was their biggest offseason acquisition, because Rudy Gay is somebody who, he's a veteran, he's savvy, he's tough physically, he can score, and to me, Rudy Gay is not afraid of the moment, right? They're going to need guys like that in the moment that are not afraid of the moment. They also added, they were able to get Eric Pascal from the Golden State Warriors, a nice up-and-coming young player. I think that's going to, he's solid. You know what I'm saying? I think he's going to add some good things to this team. They also were able to get Hassan Whiteside, another rim protector, another guy who can play vertically. So my guess would be, Whiteside would probably be the backup center to Gobert. And then they pretty much, have the same roster, the same core. And here's where the problem is. And this is why I do not believe that they're real contenders. I believe that they're pretenders. Now, do not get me wrong. This is one of those teams that are built very, very well for the regular season. It's a team that has a lot of depth, a lot of different guys that can shoot the ball. They can shoot the ball really well. They got two dynamic playmakers in Donovan Mitchell and Mike Conley. They got a good sixth man coming off the bench in Jordan Clarkson. And so they play very well team ball. They move the ball very, very well around. And like I said, regular season, they have a lot of depth. But come playoff time, they need that dominant second force of a scorer. And maybe Mike Conley is that. And maybe because he was hurt most of the playoffs and had an injury and coming back in a series that was very, very tough, Clippers, he didn't have enough time to kind of get himself back into game shape, get himself back into rhythm. Maybe that's it. But at this stage in the game, Mike Conley is 33 years old. And I'm not saying he's old and he can't get the job done. I'm just saying at this stage of Mike Conley's career, is he really going to be that number 2 guy? Now, I do believe he's a playmaker and he can open the game up for other guys. But I do not believe Michael Conley in the playoffs is that number 2 caliber guy you need on a championship team. That is what they are missing. Now, Rudy Gobert is a top talent, but he's not a scorer. They need another guy who's going to go out there and get a bucket when they need a bucket, besides Donovan Mitchell, because what's happening is, in the playoffs, teams are going to be more physical. When you have one main guy that goes out there and get it, eventually teams are just going to be physical with that guy, put a lot of pressure on that guy. Now, if you have that guy, he's going to be able to get his regardless, right? But teams are going to be very physical. And a guy like Donovan Mitchell, when that happens, you see it happen also to Dame Lillard of Portland. Once teams do that and be more physical, you know what I'm saying? It's going to put too much pressure on that guy to do everything. And as good as these guys can be, it's not enough. So that's why I always say, even though Dame has CJ McCollum to kind of pick up the slack, that's why I always said that Portland needs another all-star caliber wing or big on that team in order to go to the next level. Without that, Portland is always going to have these roadblocks. You know what I'm saying? That's the way I feel. And it's the same thing I'm starting to feel about the Utah Jazz. Until they get that next wing player or big that can dominate at a high level, they're going to face that problem. Now, once again, I am not taking anything from Gobert, but we're talking about Gobert defensive side of the ball. He's a monster. He's a maniac. Offensively, he has room to improve. He doesn't dominate the game offensively the way he needs to in order for the Jazz to move up the level they need to. So they need to find another guy who can create his own shot, who can go out there and get buckets in the playoffs in the biggest moments. They have some guys who could pitch away, a combination of Conley, healthy, and now with Rudy Gay, you know what I'm saying, with some of the other guys they have, could pinch away, but is it really enough? In the Wild Wild West, we have a lot of teams out there who are hungry, who are thirsty, who got a lot of weapons at their disposal. I still think the Jazz fall short, but I do believe, once again this year, the Jazz will be fighting for best record in the NBA. You know what I'm saying? I feel like they will finish top 3 in the West this year, as far as record. But as far as in the playoffs, once again, I just think this team doesn't have enough. But we'll see what they do. Maybe they are able to flip a trade. Maybe they can flip a couple of these guys for another guy. But to me, this team depends too much on Jordan Clarkson coming off the bench to provide that kind of punch that they want. Now, the problem with Jordan Clarkson is this. Even though he's won the Sixth Man of the Year, I do not take away. I like Jordan Clarkson. I like his heart. I like how he moves as a player. But when it comes to the biggest moments and the biggest stages so far in his career, he has left much to be undesired. Meaning that he hasn't really shown that he's clutch in the big moments yet. So even though Jordan Clarkson is this guy they try to boost up off the bench to be one of these guys that come in the biggest moments, even winning this 1 year in Cleveland, didn't really see it. I haven't seen it yet with the Jazz. In the biggest moments, can he step up and be that guy on a consistent basis? And he hasn't proven to be that player in his career. And so the Jazz need something. I think now with Dwayne Wade being part owner, Dwayne Wade might be able to, make something happen. Who knows? But I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to throw something out there. And I just believe that they need to make some kind of trade with some of these extra pieces, maybe with like Bogdanovich and Joe Ingles. See if you can flip those guys for somebody. You know what I mean? But I don't have the right player in there. I just in mind right now. But what I said, I'm just holding to it. You just need a dominated wing who's an all-star caliber player, or a big, You know, say maybe somebody who could play the power forward position that's a dynamic scorer. So, you know, something to that effect. With that said, it's your boy King Cal 516. Let me know what you think. Do you think the Jazz are really contenders or pretenders? Let me know what you think. Hit me up in the comments. Hit the like, hit the subscribe. This has been the Swiss Frame Podcast, y'all.